Do you ever wish that you had a framework for making decisions as an individual, a parent, the leader of an organization or business or a team? Well, I'm going to share with you a 4-question framework that you can use all throughout your life, and you can definitely also teach this to your kids to use. Today is the 200th episode of this podcast, and if you've been around for a while, then you know that this podcast has gone through a couple of different iterations, including a couple of name changes and different focus at different times. The heart has never changed, and that is to help you turn your good intentions into a godly impact, because every single person does have an impact that is immeasurable, it's eternal, and it's irreplaceable. It's not a question of if you have that kind of impact. It's only a question of what are you going to do with it? Is it going to be for good? Is it going to be for harm? Is it just going to be kind of mediocre? Now, in all openness, I am looking at pivoting yet again with the podcast. I haven't decided exactly what direction. May also be adding a podcast specific for a particular need. So you'll just have to stay tuned to find out more about that. If you are not a subscriber to my weekly newsletter, then I encourage you to go to the website Stephanie Presents and sign up for that. But let's get back to this 4-question framework, because this podcast is about helping you, not just telling you about me. What are the 4 questions that can help you decide what you're going to do with your one amazing, precious life? Now, 2 of these questions are not probably new to you. And the first question may cause you to go, oh, really? Here we go again. I mean, the same stuff, but stick with me. I promise. There's 2 questions in here you may not hear a lot, and maybe you've never thought of, but you need all 4 of these questions together. Right now, my laptop and recording equipment is put on a desk, and I need all 4 legs of this desk so it stays upright and it isn't falling over. And in the same way, we need all 4 of these questions to make smart decisions. So what's the first one? What do I want? Again, you've probably heard that before, but really think about that. What do I want? There's something both exciting and at times kind of intimidating about asking that question. It can be exciting to think about all the things we want. It can also be a little intimidating to think about the things we want, especially if we are afraid we might never actually have that. When we're younger, sometimes we can dream big, but sometimes as we get older in life and some of our dreams haven't worked out or they have come to a crashing end in some way, we can lose our ability and our willingness to dream. Well, okay, let me correct that. We never lose our ability to dream, but we can certainly lose the willingness to do that. What do I want? I'm in the process right now of evaluating that as a speaker and as an author, just looking at what do I want? What do I want to do? How can I best serve people that align with my abilities, my skill set, and my interests? What do I want as a person? What do I want as a parent? What do I want as an employer, employee? We can ask this same question in every single role and responsibility that we have in life. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this question because it's probably not new to you, but be courageous enough to really dig in and be honest about what you want. Don't get sidelined and sidetracked by thinking, oh, I can't really say that even to myself because it's not the right answer. The answer is what it is. What do you want? Now, the second question, maybe you've heard this one, maybe not, but it's an integral part of this framework. Why do I want it? And again, this takes courageous honesty, not just the surface level answers, not the answers that you could say to anybody and they're going to go, oh, that sounds good, but the real honest, from your heart kind of answer. Because the thing is that truth has a way of showing up and working itself out in our life, whether we try to give voice to it or not. It just continues to show up. So ask yourself, why do I want this, whatever it is? Maybe you are searching for a friendship. Maybe you are searching for a spouse. Maybe you want to be a parent. Maybe you want to change how you parent. Maybe you want to change the relationship you have with a family member, a parent, a sibling, a neighbor, a kid. Maybe you want a different job. Maybe you want to quit your job and you want to start a business. Maybe you want to travel. Maybe you want to reach some different financial goals. What do you want? Sometimes it's not just what we want to achieve or what we want to obtain. Sometimes we need to look at, what do we want to quit? There's a tremendous power in also identifying, what do I want to quit? So what do I want? And then why do I want it? What's the real motivation of my heart? Is it because I believe it is the best use of my time, my skills, my opportunities, my abilities? Or is it because I'm trying to please someone else? Maybe someone who's no longer even a part of my life. You know, it's amazing how as adults we can still live in ways that we're trying to prove that sixth grade bully wrong, or that parent or step-parent, or that coach or that teacher, or someone who made a comment about us, or maybe a lot of comments about us, and we're still trying to live in a way that we're trying to prove them wrong. Sometimes that's why we are living. So what do I want? Why do I want it? And this is the question that usually gets left out of frameworks that are similar to this. But this one is perhaps the most telling and important question of all to ask. And it is, why don't I have it? Again, what do I want? That's pretty common. Why do I want it? Okay, that's also fairly common. But why don't I have it? Oh, that's the question that sometimes we just never even think to ask. People don't challenge us to ask that question, but this is an integral, important question. You can't have a good framework for making life decisions if you're not willing to ask and answer this question. It's like promising somebody you're going to deliver them a plate of warm, ooey gooey chocolate chip cookies, and you do all of the baking except you don't put in any chocolate chips. I mean, okay, you maybe deliver cookies, but they're not chocolate chip cookies. You've got to have all of the ingredients. You see, when we ask the question, why don't I have it? That is what reveals to us whether we are living from an entitlement or blame or empowerment mindset. It shows whether we have the humility to acknowledge our role in something or whether we don't. It shows whether we have reasonable expectations, whether we have self-limiting beliefs that are holding us back, but we are really kind of blaming circumstances or other people. You see, we're either going to live from an empowerment mindset, we're going to live from a blame mindset, what we might call a victim mindset, or we're going to live from an entitlement mindset. Now, to be fair, at different times in life, we're probably all operating a little bit out of more than one of those mindsets. I don't know that we ever get to the point that we totally erase the tendency to fall into victim thinking or entitlement thinking. But the reality is that the more that we align with a empowerment mindset, then the more quickly that we will recognize when we are falling into a blame or entitlement mindset, and then we can course correct that. Now, I don't want you to be confused about what an empowerment mindset is. Empowerment is not vivaciousness. Empowerment is not dogged determination. Empowerment is not authoritarianism. It's not bulldogging your way to anything, running over anybody to get what you want. That's an entitlement mindset right there. An empowerment mindset, a healthy empowerment mindset, has a component of humility. You see, when I live truly empowered, I live aligned with reality. I don't try to live as if reality is something that I can suspend at will. I am never going to be an NFL player. Not just because I'm female. Okay, I don't have the size or the build for that, and I am way too old from that. Now, I love a good underdog story as much as the next person, but sometimes our draw to underdog stories, our upholding those as supreme examples of life, I don't think it always serves us and definitely doesn't always serve our kids well. Again, I'm not saying that we should never present underdog stories to our kids, but we want to be careful that we don't overemphasize the underdog stories so that we cause our children to have unrealistic expectations so that they live kind of not aligned with reality. If you have an 18-year-old son and he is 4'10" and weighs 115 pounds soaking wet, you are not doing him any favors by telling him that if he just keeps working out long and hard enough, he's going to become an NFL linebacker. Probably not going to happen. I mean, if he has some amazing growth spurt, okay, that could happen. It's not like everybody stops growing at age 18. But the reality is, the probability of that is almost none. You would be far better to look at what his abilities are, what his skills are, to be aligned with reality of what he is going to do. There are limitations that come to us because of the society in which we live. There are limitations that we accept because of our physical health or size. And I'm not talking about prematurely limiting ourselves with those destructive self-limiting beliefs where we play small or we throw up our hands and live with a victim mentality. Well, this is just how I am and I can't do anything about it. I'm not talking about that. Empowerment has both, on one hand, man, I can do amazing things. But it also has the corollary truth. It's not a contradiction. It's a corollary truth that holds that in a proper tension that says, I can do amazing things that align with reality. Now, I want to be careful here because sometimes we can tend to look at the world in which we are and we don't necessarily see a way out of it. Someone who was living in extreme poverty may look at the world. The reality around them says you're never going to perhaps be able to go on to college. You're never going to be able to rise above this economic class. That's not reality. The immediacy of a person's situation is not necessarily the reality of where they can live. But at the same time, there is a reality that says, I can't do anything I put my mind to. That's a lie that we've sold to our kids, and it has done them harm. And we wonder why we have so many young people who are kind of driftless or listless or pretty unhappy in life and don't seem to be making much progress. Well, part of one of those factors is that we've sold a couple of generations this lie that, well, you can do anything you want to do. You can be anything you want to be. That just doesn't align with reality. So as we are looking at why don't I have it, this causes us to be very courageous and to determine, am I living with a victim mindset? where I am blaming what I don't have on my upbringing, on my current financial situation, on my relationships, on my gender, on my education, on the, are we blaming for what we don't have, but we could have if we worked hard at it? Are we living with an entitlement mentality, which basically says, I shouldn't have to do the work that's needed to get what I want. Someone should just give that to me. Whether that can come from generation. We can have a generational entitlement mindset. Well, I shouldn't have to deal with the environmental issues that are present in this world because past generations should have taken better care of the planet. Okay, I'm not going to argue with you on that one, but you can either live with an entitlement mindset and do nothing. You can live with a victim mindset, or you can live with an empowerment mindset that says, hey, guess what? Here's the nature of life, and this is what has been true throughout all of human history. All of us, whether as individuals or generations, get handed things that aren't fair. Nobody gets a fair life. Everybody gets something handed to them, no matter what their social or economic class, no matter what their race is, that isn't fair. Some people get a whole lot more handed to them that they did nothing to earn. Some people get a whole lot less handed to them, and it's through no fault of their own. And so what makes a difference is when we approach life with an empowerment mindset, then we stop living with a sense of entitlement, we stop living with a sense of victimhood, and we live with a position of empowerment. Now, as a person of faith, I believe what the Bible says, which is that God has not given to his children a spirit of fear, but a spirit of power and love and of a sound mind. In other words, live like you are empowered people who have brains to think, who have creative skills, who possess the ability to impact and influence and to make changes in your life and in your spheres of influence, whether those spheres seem to be small or they are large, and none of us ever really know the full ripple effect of our lives anyway. So there we have the first three questions. What do I want? Why do I want it? Why don't I have it? And then the last question, what am I willing to do to get it? There's the rub, right? I mean, if everybody who wanted to lose weight and they looked at it and said, why do I want this? And they said, because I want to be in good health. I want to be able to live a productive life. I want to be around for my children and my grandchildren. And I don't want to spend my years and my time and my money sitting in doctor's offices. Okay. And then they might even be able to answer the question, why don't I have it? And they may say, you know what? I don't have it because up until now, I just haven't been willing to put the work in to acquire the health that I need, whether that's losing weight, whether that's exercise, whether that's nutrition. Then there's the question, and what am I willing to do to get it? And that's where we decide how much do we really, truly want something. That gets to be kind of tough sometimes, right? Because we can talk a whole lot about wanting something, but then when it looks like, what am I willing to do to get it? And you know what? I talked about this a little bit on the last podcast, but you know what makes extraordinary is not some big moment. It's not some big event. It is committed, ongoing, faithful, ordinary. That's what leads to extraordinary. It's when you put in the reps over and over and over again. You know, speaking of exercise, I would love that the plan in life was that the way that our bodies worked was that I could just go to the gym like once every 6 months. I could work out really hard for a day and my muscles would just be great. They would whip themselves back into shape and they would stay in shape for at least another, let's just say at least 5 months. Okay. And then maybe I kind of take a month and it's not that great. But then I could go back the next month and I could put in a full day of work and my muscles would just snap back into place and I could show up again in another 6 months. I wish that that was possible. But again, that's not reality. And there's no amount of wishful thinking. There's no amount of mindfulness. There's no amount of positive proclamations that is ever going to change that reality. There are biological limitations that we accept as people of maturity. So how do you get to have good, strong muscles? Putting in the reps over a period of time. A little bit and a little bit and a little bit and a little bit, and you just have to keep at it. Years ago, I fell off of a pool ladder. Okay, I mean, this ladder was like this. It was one step, and it was all a whopping probably 20 inches off the ground. It wasn't even like, oh, I fell off the top of an 8-foot ladder. No, it was like a little ladder that you climbed into, that kids climbed to get into a little pool. And it just so happened that the step broke and I fell straight back. And it just so happened that as I fell, my arm was behind me and it was positioned in such a way that it broke my wrist. And it wasn't a compound fracture, thank God, but it was a serious enough fracture that I ended up having surgery and I had pins put in that wrist, and I went through a series of 3 different slings and casts in order to allow that wrist time to grow. Well, what nobody had prepared me for was the extent to which the muscles in my arm would deteriorate while I was in those variety of casts for 6 weeks. So when that final cast came out and they put basically like a pair of pliers around the head of those pins and they pulled them out, then I was expecting pretty much to be able to just, go back to normal life. And I had 5 little kids at the moment, at the time, and I needed to be able to use that arm again. And you know what? I couldn't even get enough grip between my thumb and my forefinger to pull the wrapper off of a lollipop. And nobody had told me that. And so then I discovered, I was going to need to go through several weeks of physical therapy to get the range of motion in my hand back, because of the way that the cast had to come between my thumb and my fingers. And also to be able to get the muscles in my arm back. And I was determined I would get that range of motion back, even though they didn't think it was possible, but I did. And it was, how did it happen? Did I just go in for 1 or 2 therapy appointments? No. I had to go in, not just for the appointments, but I had to go home and I had to do the exercises they told me. And these weren't like extraordinarily difficult exercises. I mean, it's like you go home and you have this ball or you have this clamp, and basically you use it to open and close, open and close. You put pressure. I mean, it can seem kind of silly, but that is how eventually that muscle tone returned and the full use of my hand and my arm came back. And that's the same thing that is true for us in life. What are we willing to do to get something? A lot of the times we want to look for the magic bullet. We want to look for the quick fix. We want to look for the let me go to the gym twice a year kind of plan, whether it's with our finances, it's with our health, it's with our mental health, it's with our relationships. We want the big event and all of a sudden it's all going to be good and it's all going to be over and everything's going to be smoothed out. And it doesn't work that way. It's the consistent reps of showing up and doing the ordinary that eventually leads to the extraordinary. So I'm in this process right now in my own business of looking at these things and evaluating my direction as a speaker and as an author in terms of answering these 4 questions. So I share them with you because these really are questions that take courage. Okay, these are not for the faint of heart. These are not for people who just want to stay stuck. These are not for the complainers of the world. These are not for the people who want to live with a blame mentality or a victim mentality or an entitlement mentality. These are the questions for people who want to live with an empowerment mentality. And if you're listening to this podcast, then I absolutely believe that is you, because you do want your immeasurable, eternal, and irreplaceable impact to be extraordinary. So thank you for being a podcast listener. I invite you to subscribe if you haven't already, share this, and then leave a review. Those reviews let other people know, hey, this is something that's worth listening to. And again, you can learn more about speaking engagements and resources on my website, stephaniepresents.com. Until next time, thanks for listening, and have an extraordinary life by just showing up every day and doing the good ordinary.